This is probably the most valuable thing I can say to your audience and to everybody who I talk to all the time is...
Hey, I'm Greg Grunberg, and welcome to Talk About It, the podcast where we focus on topics that everybody should be talking about, and hopefully they will be, not only talking, but screaming about.
Epilepsy shouldn't keep you from doing anything that you want to do.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
While we will continue our focus on epilepsy, of course, we will also look at other health conditions and causes. Our goal is to knock down, drag out, and eliminate stigma and raise awareness. Each episode, you're going to hear from amazing advocates and champions. You will learn, as I will, about how we can all help to make a real difference.
Talking about it is important. It's all about connecting.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Thank you for talking about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
Talk About It is sponsored by Seizures Are Signs. Seizures Are Signs is dedicated to educating those living with or caring for someone with uncontrolled seizures about the importance of early diagnosis, recognition, and treatment. To learn more, please visit seizuresaresigns.com. Seizures Are Signs is made available by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. All right, so let's jump right into this episode of Talk About It. Caregivers fear no more. When you hear that, you might think, what are we fearing? What are we afraid of? We're the ones that are supposed to have it together. We are the ones that are taking care of other people. Hence the term caregiver. We are giving care. Well, part of giving care is knowing what to do. And it can be overwhelming at times. It can be downright scary when you look into the future and you think, do I have all my ducks in a row? Do I know everything I'm supposed to know to be able to take care of this wonderful person that I love so much? Well, wouldn't it be great if there was the caregiver of all caregivers, someone that has gone through this before, someone who has all the experience, someone who has organized everything that we need to know, maybe into a book form, someone that is just so insightful yet relatable and funny and charming and sweet, the ultimate caregiver. Well, guess what? She is on this episode of Talk About It. Her name is Kelley Coleman. She's the greatest. You're going to want to pre-order her book, and then you're going to want to recommend that book to every caregiver you know. All that and so much more on this episode of Talk About It. We just had a knock at the door. Come on in. Kelley, our guest. Okay, please come sit down. What do you have in your hands?
I have, for both of you, I have Venus flytraps.
Wait, sit and show me. Wait, Venus flytraps.
Venus flytraps.
Okay, I looked at this when you walked in. You are the sweetest already. Let's talk about these in a second. I just want to talk about, and you, okay, so you brought me a gift. I'm bringing you a gift.
I love it. I
Okay.
need a hat. My two amazing children, one of whom thinks it's really funny to throw things out the window on the freeway. And so living on the 101 somewhere are several pairs of his glasses and my last baseball cap. So thank you.
I love it. Oh, do you have a dog, a small dog? Because I would hate if he threw a dog out the window.
We have a golden lab, and she's also his service dog. So she's like, yeah, you're not throwing me anywhere, dude.
Oh, my God. Wait, so is it a seizure dog?
This one is not a seizure dog. We looked into all the different things, and we ended up not choosing a seizure dog for all the reasons we can get into, but
Okay.
she's the best.
Oh, my God. That's a golden doodle, you said?
No, she's a golden lab.
A golden lab. That's
Yep.
a shame. Those are the most beautiful
You say
dogs.
that's a shame?
I'm totally kidding because I said doodle.
I'm leaving. I'm taking my plans.
No, because they are so beautiful. Golden labs are like, oh my God. Okay, so but you got here, for people that are just tuning in, you got here because of a mutual friend of ours,
Yes.
Drew Powell, and who Nick knows very well.
I love Drew.
You guys sing in church together.
Yeah.
But Drew is also.
that's great.
But
Yeah.
Drew is one of the best actors I know. One of the great musician, great friend. He's in our band, the Action
Yes.
Figures band. How did you meet Drew?
Lots of mutual friends through kids and school and neighborhood, and we donate to the church for their food pantry.
Yeah, and he said that he saw you at a party, then he saw you
Yes.
at another party, and whatever. So this is the way it happens. Like, you guys could have talked about anything.
Yes.
And you talked about your situation.
Mm-hmm.
You opened up to him. So open up to me. Tell me. He's like, Kelley's the most wonderful person. She's got a book coming out. This is so great. She's a caregiver. Okay, spill it, girl.
All right. Oh, this is going to be your longest podcast
No,
episode ever.
Condense. I'm the guy who goes off on tangents.
Fantastic.
There's also a camera on Nick. So
fantastic. Nick,
Nick's
you
got a
jump
mouth
on
him as well.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it. So
talk about it.
Talking about all the things. I've met Drew through friends and parties and kids and all the thing. We are both fans of epic pumpkin carving, so we take our pumpkin carving very seriously.
Ooh.
Where I saw him recently, and I've also seen him walking around in the neighborhood, and so he knows our kids through pumpkin carving, but also our neighborhood.
I don't care about Drew.
I
want to know about you.
But okay, so it's coming.
I don't
coming
care.
Back. It's coming
We're
around.
past that.
It's coming around. Drew who?
Okay, Drew who?
Drew
so
who.
you're
Right.
so you have a beautiful family. This is what Drew tells me.
Yeah. No.
They're not doodles.
No, they're amazing.
They're
amazing. Husband, 2 boys.
Okay.
Sean is 12 and he is in middle school and plays the tuba and whittles and is in a rock band and
coolest kid ever.
He's the coolest kid ever.
He's 12.
He's 12. And then our younger son, Aaron, who is tied for the coolest kid ever, he can just radiate joy everywhere he goes.
You sent me a text that I thought you didn't see this. It's awesome. You're like, he's got boy band hair.
Yes, he does.
What are the other things that you put 3 things into the text. You're like, oh my gosh, my son is blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I already know who your son is. Like you were this is no wonder you're a writer. You were very concise in painting a picture of him that I was just like, oh man, I love this kid already.
He's the best. He's, his boy band hair. He's the mayor of Trader Joe's.
Oh,
He
right.
spot airplanes before anybody else ever sees them. And
the mayor of Trader Joe's
lights up the room.
That's all you need to say.
Oh my gosh. For his birthday, the manager of our local store gave him his own actual name tag. And so every time he goes, customers are coming up to him and asking him where to find the carrots. And he either kind of pushes them away because he's busy or he finds the carrots.
He's restocking.
He is.
Right, exactly.
He's a busy guy.
I love it. I want to talk to him about the tuna salad. I have an issue. But so what is that bell all about at Trader Joe's? Like you hear them ring a bell every so often. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Different numbers. So it's 1 or 2 or 3 rings, depending on what it is, whether they need assistance at one of the check stands, whether they need a supervisor or whether they need you to take your bags out.
Wow, this is coming from the assistant mayor.
A lot of time.
That's incredible.
A lot of time there.
But he also has issues, as my son does.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me.
Okay, so in addition to epilepsy, Aaron is a outlier amongst the outliers. He has a yet undiagnosed genetic syndrome, and we've done literally every test that science has available, and we got nothing. So
a genetic syndrome. Okay, so from people that are listening that have no idea what you're talking about. So it's his genetic makeup. There's something in it that is causing
disabilities.
Disabilities, and those disabilities manifest themselves how? Like if I meet him, how do I know he's disabled? Or
Yes, and I love that you're asking that because, as you know, some disabilities are visible and some are not visible, and it really does impact the way a person moves literally or figuratively through the world. And with him, he is visibly disabled. He has epilepsy, autism, cerebral palsy, cortical vision impairment, microcephaly, feeding tubes, sensory processing stuff, fine motor, gross motor. Like he's like,
Wow.
I'm just going to check all the boxes.
Yeah, wow. He is a smorgasbord.
He is. And within that, I feel like anytime I give the list, that's partly why, as you know, storytelling is such an important part of this. When you hear that list, people go, oh,
yeah, not
you
me.
poor thing. And it's like, no, because we talk about the boy band hair and the Trader Joe's and the airplanes and the pool and like all these things.
That's what makes him up.
Because that is what makes him up. Exactly. And so he
has all that stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't have him.
Thank you.
Yeah, and don't ever be afraid to talk about it. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions, and to engage, because the more educated people are, the less ignorant they are, the less scared they are around you, and that includes family and friends. With all of those things going on, I'm sure it can, because in our family it's just epilepsy, which is major, but there are times when family members are like, don't leave him alone with me because I don't know what to do and all that stuff. But let's go back to, he's your second. How old is he?
Second. He's 10.
He's 10. So when did you know there was an issue, and was it from birth? Did they know in utero? Did they, how did you know?
So everything in utero was checking all the boxes of everything developing typically, and so that's what we suspected. Something about mom instinct on day one when he was born, I just knew something was going on.
He was larger than his mom.
By the way, he probably was.
Probably was. You're a tiny, adorable individual.
Thank you. And I'm wearing heels.
And you're wearing heels.
So, yeah, there you go.
I love it. Some people carry pepper spray just in case something happens. You bring plants that could hurt people. You're like, hey, I'm holding Venus flytraps. We'll get to these, by the way.
We'll get to these because there's a story.
There's
always a story.
And if you listen, it'll be at the end of the podcast.
By the way, if we can catch a fly during the podcast.
Are they like
we'll be
ready? Are they like?
Oh, yeah, look, they're open.
They're open.
They're open right now. And if you stick your finger.
Wait, hold it up again. Oh, my gosh.
Look at that.
That is
Venus flytraps, just like in the musical
Little Shop of
Little
Horrors.
Shop of Horrors.
Audrey.
Yeah.
That's Audrey.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah.
And there's a hair.
Oh,
No.
yep. If it's
that's
pink, it's mine.
That's yours.
Yep. If not, I don't know.
Is that what you're feeding them now?
You know what?
Isn't it? This is crazy. And I'm saving this to the end of the episode because I'm trying to find a parallel between these plants and our lives as caregivers.
By the way, I have that, and that I also brought another gift for you because I'm like
your book. Please say you brought
Santa.
your book.
I brought my book.
Okay.
That's a galley, so still some.
It's a galley, but this is what the
still
cover is
some
going to look
tweaks.
like, right?
It is.
Okay, guys.
Everything no one tells you about parenting a disabled child. Your
Yes.
guide to essential systems, services, and supports.
No cute title here. This is what we need. This is exactly what we need. I can tell you, I wish I had this book when Jake was diagnosed.
Yes.
So tell me about when Aaron was diagnosed.
So, well, officially he's not yet diagnosed, so there's
Oh,
that.
okay.
As you know, that can be such a key part of decoding epilepsy.
But your pregnancy was normal.
Pregnancy was normal, and other son is about a year and a half older, so, all the same things.
Awesome.
I fractured a foot during both pregnancies, so had the boot.
Just to stay
and
consistent?
Yeah, and all the things.
You fractured a foot both times?
Just by walking around and being huge. Didn't do a thing.
Did your husband do an animated version of you, like because he's an animator, right?
He's a producer and executive in animation.
In animation. Okay, so he was
we draw bad drawings of each other.
Right.
Yes.
You're called
and
the
then
big
we give
toe.
each other notes.
You do? I bet.
In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. So diagnosis.
Yeah. So Aaron's born.
Aaron's born. I suspected something was up, and I was saying things like, he's sleeping too much. And they're like, he's an infant. He sleeps too much. Have some ice chips. And I'm like,
Have some ice chips.
And
right away. So that was in the hospital. You're like,
I had a feeling and
intuition,
and nobody believed me because there weren't signs, and he was passing the tests. And brought him home, and he was sleeping so much. When he was awake, he was crying, which is a thing, can happen with babies.
Colicky baby.
And getting him to eat was so challenging, and I was getting the response of, oh, babies are like that. Some babies are like that. He's just different than your other one. Give it time.
Okay.
And cut to, as he's developing and all of this is continuing, the first clear red flag that we noticed and we were able to verbalize and to show to others is you can tell when your baby is looking at you.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's never looking at me, like ever. Like his eyes are open and looks kind of glazed.
When you make a noise, did he react to the noise? So maybe you were like, oh, maybe his hearing is affected.
He wasn't reacting that much, and he was not really participating in or interested in the world around him.
And how old?
Months old.
A month old, okay.
Tiny baby.
Okay.
The first specialist we ever saw, thanks to my sister, who happens to be a pediatric ophthalmologist, doesn't live here, but I wish she did, getting us in to Children's Hospital to check out his vision, because she knew what I was not yet ready to confront, is that he was blind. And so we took him in. The doctor did all the tests, and it's a neuro-ophthalmologist there who's in this book. And he was shining bright lights in the eyes of my 2.5-year-old, or 2.5-month-old.
Right. And no
and
reaction.
Aaron was not reacting at all. And I just looked at him, I said, he can't see that, can he?
So it's so interesting because, like, for parents, this is great. So people are listening to this. This is not great.
Right.
But this is what's great is the information you're providing. Because
Yes.
people are, because as little babies, you know, newborns, they don't do anything. Like they're like, they're just, that's the way they are. So
Yes.
you could easily go, he's fine. If you're in denial, you and your husband clearly were like, there's something here.
Yes.
Let's deal with this. Because 2.5 months, some people wait a lot longer. And so blind.
Yes.
So to this day, he's blind. Aaron's blind.
So what's interesting is physiologically, all of the structures in his eye were just fine. And so he was diagnosed with cortical vision impairment, cortical meaning the brain. So right there should have been a key that we've got neurology stuff on our path. And vision impairment means your vision is impaired. And so cortical vision impairment is when the brain is not processing the information it's getting in order to make sense of visual images. So stuff was coming in, but the brain didn't know what to do with it.
Interesting.
It's actually, as far as visual impairments go, is quite common and is something that many children with multiple disabilities, with neurological disabilities have. And there's a huge range of cortical vision impairment from total blindness to quite good vision / nearly perfect or typical vision and everything in between. There's also a huge range of development and outcome. There might be some development. There might be very little development. In my son's case, our neuro-ophthalmologist has described Aaron's progress as almost unheard of. The last time, I'm going to cry. By the way, I'm a crier, so I'm just going to
Hold on
cry.
to me. Come on.
There you go. I'm going to cry into the Venus flytraps.
I love it. I love it.
Right?
So his progress
So
is almost
his
unheard
progress, the last time we saw him, the doctor, we went in and Aaron can now walk. And so he walks into the office on his own with the service dog. And he has a toy that has all the letters of the alphabet. And from across the room, Aaron read an eye chart and identified them correctly on all the buttons. So he could read all the way over there and he can read on here.
of. Wow.
And the doctor has said several times his progress is almost unheard of.
Coming up on Talk About It.
You were thrown into the fire.
Yes. And it felt like this bottomless pit.
Yeah.
You will feel better. As a caregiver, I wish someone had told me that in the beginning.
It is Epilepsy Awareness Month, and, you know, every day is sort of Epilepsy Awareness Day for us that are in the trenches, for the caregivers, for the patients, for the family members. We're always thinking about the loved one that we know that is dealing with epilepsy. But today, this month especially, is a time when we need to talk about it. Don't be afraid to bring it up. Ask people at Thanksgiving, since it's November, or anytime at the office, among friends, whatever. Just say, do you guys know what to do in case you have a seizure? Certainly send them to talkaboutitonvideo.com or talkaboutit.org, but just give them the basics. Talk about it. You'd be so surprised how empowered people will feel, and that'll translate to so many other things. It opens up the conversation, and it makes what you're dealing with not so scary. It preps people around your child, your loved one, your spouse, your brother, your sister, whoever is dealing with epilepsy. It preps them to know what to do in case that person has a seizure, and we all know it could save their life. So take Epilepsy Awareness Month and make it a time where you do more talking than you normally do. I encourage you to talk about it always. We all have something. I don't care what you're going through, but Epilepsy Awareness Month is the time to really, really talk. Obviously, this is what I talk about as well, is you're never going to find somebody who's a mirror of you. You're never going to find someone whose child is exactly, but that's not. This book is not about your child, but you are going to learn a ton from this book. Don't look at it and go, well, that's not my son. I mean, we there were therapy groups that we wanted to be a part of, as caregivers. And it was like, well, none of these kids are exactly in Jake's situation, but it doesn't matter. You're going to learn something from them. But so is there something that you look back now and go, you know what, I'm so smart that we did this because I know it helped him? Or is there well, don't talk medication, but I'm saying, like what did you do therapy-wise with him?
On the vision front, I wish I had some sort of advice to give, partly because of the undiagnosed genetic syndrome. We don't know.
Well, so but it sounds like it was like just a late connection. Like his connections developed, like in utero, normally kids develop, the eye can talk to the brain normally. Mm-hmm. And by the time they're born, that's fully developed. Mm-hmm. With him, it was slower to be developed, right?
It was slower to be developed, and over the years, because Aaron's level of communication is still a work in progress, he's not able to communicate to us the degree to which he sees, but the eye chart is a great example of he's seeing and he uses visual information functionally. There's not a specific thing we did. We tried the vision therapies, we tried the standard alternative whatever therapies. For Aaron, his neurology really seems like it takes time. The vision piece was a huge thing to develop. For years, he had chronic vomiting issues that were neurologically caused. So 5 or 6 random times a day, he was just throwing up all over and like projectile exorcist.
Was it a vertigo, dizziness type thing, nausea, or just
his brain was telling him to throw up?
Okay, so that may have been seizure activity.
Our neurology team has not said they believe that is seizure activity, but again, all of this should have told us that seizures are something we need to talk about and we need to be aware of. Yeah. And in thinking back about our journey and what I would have done differently, I wish I would have known to talk about epilepsy with other families, especially with rare disease families with cerebral palsy, neurological impairments, all the things, and with our doctors. One neurologist that we used to see, he's an epileptologist, and I still hold him in the highest regard, but he said when Aaron was young, I'm an expert in epilepsy. This is not a kid who's going to have seizures. Cut to a year later, and we were calling 911 for his first seizure.
Right.
So, as you know, there are so many question marks with it. Yeah. And anyone with, this is probably the most valuable thing I can say to your audience and to everybody who I talk to all the time is if you or your child is in any way at elevated risk for seizures, talk to your doctor about what to expect, what it looks like, what it is like to call 911. There's actually a fire captain in here, goes through the bullet points of how you do that. And are rescue medicines appropriate? Where can I do seizure first aid? We've done the Epilepsy Foundation has tremendous epilepsy first aid.
Talk about it on video.com.
Yes.
Talk about it on video.com. I'm sorry. I mean, the Epilepsy Foundation has great resources too, but we have several videos, several things that you can learn there. Yeah. So diagnosis, all of the everything you're dealing with, that's okay. That's unique to you. Let's talk to the audience about being a caregiver. You just said, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. You know, in hindsight, you can't do that. I talk about getting in the car, grabbing the rearview mirror, and ripping it off and throwing it away. Because what behind you is not in front of you. So don't beat yourself up. You can always have done something different. Yes. I could have, certainly, but I didn't have this book as a resource. I didn't have you I didn't have my friend. I'm the red phone for so many people. They call us all the time. I'm sure you get calls. So what do you tell somebody? Because I just got a call. And I said, I was like, look, but even before you tell me what just happened with your daughter, just know everything's going to be okay. I said, I don't know what level of okay that's going to be, but just know that you're now talking to the right person. I'm going to help guide you. Yes. And this is what our community is all about. So what do you tell people when somebody calls and they're like, I know you've been through a bunch and my friend's suffering. Is there any way, can she call you because her daughter, blah, blah, blah. What do you say?
First of all, yes, you always can call.
Yes.
My version of exactly what you just said, which was actually the original title of this book, was You Will Feel Better. As a caregiver, I wish someone had told me that in the beginning. It was so hard, and shortly after the vision diagnosis. We landed in the hospital. Aaron wasn't eating. We found out he had to get a feeding tube. I had never heard of feeding tubes. And
you were thrown into the fire.
yes. And it felt like this bottomless pit.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I felt horrible. And I honestly believed I was never going to feel better. And that this feeling, I'm going to cry again,
Yeah.
this feeling was forever.
Yeah, you feel like you're in a dark tunnel or a bowl or
Yes.
a well, and you're like, I'm never going to reach the top. I'm never going to.
Yes.
I'm never going to fully get my hands around this. I'm never going to really be
Yes.
able to handle. So clearly, you have, and you do so much more. You're a successful mom of 2 beautiful kids. You and your husband. How do you? These are the caregiver things that we on the caregiverseries.com,
Yes.
caregiverseries.com, thecaregiverseries.com. I address these questions all
Yes.
the time. How do you balance, first of all, you and your husband, like your relationship? Was it strained? Were there times? I mean, Elizabeth and I find ourselves sometimes, not now because thank God Jake's doing well, but like, we'd be arguing, yelling about certain things. And we're like, we're not arguing over the milk container that should have been, whatever. We're just frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, do you find those situations?
I find that, first of all, marrying someone who is incredibly level-headed has been really helpful. I'm not necessarily the level-headed one, so I get that and appreciate that from my husband. The things that we find isn't necessarily we're fighting over things that are unsaid, but the level of exhaustion and we can't take a break, or he is going to work, which is an incredibly necessary part of our lives.
Yeah.
And I am not getting a break. And part of that is the cognitive labor that goes into, I have to blend food for the feeding tube, get the seizure meds ready. He has to eat by this time because it sets our schedule in motion. He has to nap at this time. If he hasn't eaten this much, we have to make it up. And all the pieces. And I think for us, it hasn't been we're screaming at each other, but it's been just trying to figure out how to function as people and have conversations with each other, because so much of it is, I need to tap out, you do these 3 things, I'm coming back, I wake up from a nap, did you do these 3 things? And to not just feel like we are there to function and to check boxes.
Yeah.
And we have days and weeks and months where we are just functioning and checking boxes and in survival mode.
Yeah.
And then other times when we feel like, we got this, we're great, which is, of course, a very dangerous place to be because then the floor falls out from underneath you.
Look, I have 3 boys.
Yes.
And 2 of them are baseball players. One of them graduated. He played college ball. The other one's playing right now. I'm leaving for here to go to a game if you want to come, Nick. And baseball is a very superstitious sport.
Yes.
So it's every time there's like, I see him doing this routine at the plate or whatever, or doing whatever, I think, oh yeah, like when somebody asks me or somebody asks you, so how's Aaron doing? And you just like, even though he's doing great, you don't want to say it because you don't want to jinx it. It happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, Jake's doing really well. Like I just did it. I knock wood.
Yes.
It's like something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that superstition, and something that I still struggle with, and I'm sure will forever, is my things and life and career are not the most important thing in our family.
Yeah.
And
it puts a lot in perspective.
It does.
When you have a special needs child.
It absolutely does.
But how do you stay a romantic, loving? How do you stay hot for each other? How do you? I mean, it's,
you marry a really good-looking husband. It's just
I
that
looked for a really good-looking husband for a while, and instead I got a really hot wife.
You know what? Perhaps even better.
Yeah, I would have taken it.
There you go.
Personally.
There you go.
Coming up on Talk About It.
Most of us are basically given a diagnosis and told to go home, Google, and cry.
Yeah.
But it's not how to find a specialist, how to know if they deal with your insurance.
That's all in the book?
What information? That is all.
Oh.
This is checklists and worksheets and bullet points and questions.
This is Caregiver for Dummies.
It is. It is.
I can't do this alone. I can't talk about it alone. No one wants to hear what I have to say. Well, some people, but I have been so fortunate to be in a bunch of different amazing projects, both TV and film over the years, and I never let any of these people go. Here are some of my pals, some really cool celebrities who are talking about it.
Here's an idea. Talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Just talk about it.
You don't have to watch my shows, but it's again.
You know who the real heroes are? Caregivers.
Thank you to all the caregivers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
I did this on deal, but it's for you, caregivers.
If you're a caregiver, don't forget to be kind to yourself.
Take care of yourself to take care of others.
It takes a lot of emotional, physical energy.
So remember, caregivers, take 5 minutes for yourself.
You deserve it.
Put your mask on first so you can save others.
From the bottom of my nerdy little heart, thank you to all the caregivers.
Don't be afraid to talk about it with others. Thank you.
Now that you know,
Now that you know,
Now that you know,
Talk about it.
I think that's the first step.
take the first step and talk about it.
talk about it.
Visit talkaboutitonvideo.com. But Harrison's got a better one, probably, right?
Talk about it. Also, how do you balance time? So, again, I've told this story a bunch of times, but to another fellow caregiver, when Ben, our middle guy, Jake's our oldest and has epilepsy, but when Ben was, I keep changing his age every time I tell this story, but he was really young, and he said, I wish I had epilepsy. Because he saw the attention that Jake was getting, these overnight EEGs, and Daddy's spending the night in the hospital with him, and all that. So now, and then I reverted back to what my parents taught me, which was called special nights. And I have an older brother, younger sister, and my parents used to go, tonight's your special night. Anything you want to do. Yeah. Just me. I was alone with my parents. And it was always like bowling or, just driving around or going to miniature golf or something cheap. It was never like, hey, I want to. But it's just that time alone. And so how did you ever balance that? Was that ever an issue?
That is always on our minds. We don't want Sean to feel like he's getting shortchanged in life. And so we have the special time. We have the dates with him. Aaron still naps every day.
Yeah.
And
Jake does too.
It's so great. And also something to talk to your doctor about. Does the amount of sleep your child gets potentially impact their seizure threshold?
Yes.
That's a big question.
Because I encourage people, I see that naps help Jake. But if it's just like us, though. If we take a nap and we nap too long, we get up and we're groggy.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Jake has, he'll have nocturnal seizures or he'll have sleep to wake is an issue when his brain is waking up.
Yes. Those were ours, were the nocturnal and the sleep to wake.
Yeah. So the sleep to wake portion of it, you go, oh, wait, if he's going to take a nap, it could happen in the middle of the day because where he's normally, but he doesn't. He's pretty good now.
I know, I'm doing that too.
Yeah. Yep. But it's just one of those things that, again, I love that you say, talk to your doctor about it. Don't be afraid to talk to your doctor about it. There are going to be a lot of things that you read in this book. Everything no one tells you about parenting and a disabled child. You need to look up Kelley Coleman. Where's the book going to be available, by the way?
It comes out March 12th. It's available for pre-order at all the book places.
Amazon,
Target, Barnes & Noble.
Awesome. Good for you.
Find a disabled bookstore near you. The Last Bookstore in Los Angeles is partnering with us.
A disabled bookstore?
Disabled owned. So
disabled
owned by disabled individuals. My website has a link to a website that lists quite a few disabled bookstores around the country.
Disabled owned bookstore. I love that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And
that's great. Okay.
This is Kelly's website here.
Yeah. So
Sign
people
up.
can join the community. So you're creating a community of caregivers.
Yes.
And
here's the book.
This is great.
This is great.
I love this.
Just wanted to interject there. Okay.
I want to give you a quote. Can I give you a quote?
Yes,
you can
please.
Put on the website?
Can I put it on the book?
You put on the. You still have time to put it on the book?
Yep. I was actually going to hit you up for a quote either for the back or to go on the front page.
100%.
Love that.
Wow, unbelievable!
Love, see, it just gets better.
I just co-created a game. It's Wordle for our community, and it's called Brainiac, and it's going to be launching soon. So every day is a new word, and the word is hope, disabled, child, parenting, whatever. It's going to be something that relates. Coffee. Coffee. Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, it's cool.
But it's a way to connect.
It's a way to connect and also to get people who are not already in this community and not already diagnosed talking about it, because that's something with this book. I want it to be in the hands of me the day before I knew I needed it. And there are so many caregivers who don't know today that they're going to need this book, they're going to need this podcast, they're going to need to know about epilepsy tomorrow.
Yeah, it's kind of like selling insurance. It's
Yes.
It's tough though.
Yes.
It is tough. Like
It
if
is.
I didn't have a kid with
Yeah.
some sort of a disability, I don't know if I would pick up this book.
Absolutely.
You should go to
And that's
talkabout.org.
why the doctors and the educators and the social service agencies need to know about your work, about my work, because most of us, and especially in the rare disease community that I'm in, are basically given a diagnosis and told to go home, Google, and cry. And they're not given any resources, or they're like, you should see a specialist, bye.
Yeah.
But it's not like how to find a specialist, how to know if they deal with your insurance, what questions to take.
That's all in the book?
What information. That is all.
Oh.
This is written in a lot of checklists and worksheets and bullet points and questions,
I love it.
because these were templates that have been sitting on my computer for the last decade.
This is Caregiver for Dummies.
It is.
I mean, because we're all dummies at the beginning.
Yes.
We all need to learn, and to have a guidance, to have all this. This is a massive resource for people. I love it. Okay, so tell me your recharge. How do you take care of yourself to be able to take care of your beautiful family? There's a big thing that I push with caregivers is, when you're on a plane, they say put a mask on yourself before you help others. You have to be healthy. You have to be physically, mentally prepared for anything that can happen.
So my metaphor is learn how to hold your breath so you can do that and do that and do all the things and fly the plane if you need to. And so kind of step one of my pre-self-care of any sort is know what to do in case the plane's going down, because the plane's going down at some point.
So that's interesting. If every day you added to your knowledge of what to do in case, that's a good, I was more referring to, do you jog? Do you take a walk and all that stuff?
I do all that, and I could tell you all the
I'm
boring
sure you
things
just,
that I do.
every day you dye another strand of hair. That's what I'm
Yes,
imagining
it's
you
true.
do
It's
every
true.
single day. But there's all that stuff
Yes.
that is necessary just to be a healthy person.
Absolutely.
But I love that idea. I love that you're like, okay, you know what? This everything is in this book. Everything you need is here. That's why the first word is everything. But there's nothing wrong with taking baby steps and going, you know what? This week I'm going to prepare the I'm going to talk to my insurance agent. I'm going to get the
Absolutely.
paperwork in order,
Yes.
just so that because by the way, when your kid turns, you haven't experienced this yet. When your child turns 18, you have to have all that paperwork lined up so that if they're wherever they are, something happens, you cannot get into the hospital room. You cannot.
Yes.
There's so many things. You need to have all of that set up.
And so that is not necessarily the self-care answer people are looking
No,
for.
no.
And in addition to all the other things, like I need to know what to do when everything hits fan, because based on my last decade of experience, it will hit the fan, and it's going to happen when it is wildly inconvenient and wildly unexpected. So having that in place so that I don't immediately spiral, and that the emergency doesn't take me down with the ship,
Yeah.
then gives me the mental space to do all the things. I make some pretty intense Halloween costumes, which will get us to the Venus flytrap
I was
story
hoping
in
you
a
were going to
minute.
say incredible chocolate chip muffins. That's what I was hoping.
You know what? Chocolate chip cookies are more my thing, but I'll take chocolate chip muffins
so,
too.
wow, so really intense Halloween costumes.
Intense Halloween costumes. I used to teach cooking classes, so I love to cook.
Love that.
And write books in my
You write books.
Write books in my free time. I think
But
one
this
of my
is going to empower and free up a lot of people. I don't know that I know of a resource like this that is all in one. There's so much information in here, but it's not so dense that it's hard to read. It's
like having a conversation with us. It's funny. It's not eat your broccoli. I have interviews. I can't believe some of these people said yes, because they're amazing, with over 40 experts in here, one of whom was Judy Heumann, who unfortunately passed last March, the mother of the disability rights movement.
Yeah.
And
She did the sit-in, right? She was the one who did the
yes,
sit-in.
exactly. And she was such a fan of the project and would call me at random times and interject all kinds of thoughts. And one of her final thoughts as we were wrapping up interviews was, we need more people to tell our stories. And which is so powerful about everything you're doing.
This is what I'm trying to do.
Because what allows all of this incredibly boring and awful and dreadful information to be digestible and processable and trustable is us telling our stories.
Yep.
And when we have that connection,
Yeah.
we can put it together and power through. And I know you've talked about this too, of just the isolating feeling at the beginning of this, and you're alone down in the bottom of that well.
But you're not alone. That's the.
But you're not.
You're not alone. So
Yes.
that's what this episode I hope has taught people. All right, let's talk about the plants.
By the way, check this out. Here's some of your Halloween costumes.
Wow.
There you go.
Let's go. Let's talk about the dog.
King
What's the
Kong.
dog's name?
Her name is Hetty.
Hetty.
She's a
She's
gem.
adorable. Hetty the airplane.
Hetty the airplane. Hetty does not like wearing costumes. She finds them rather undignified.
Yeah.
But sometimes she has to be an airplane.
And I love the use of Barbie. Like,
yeah, you know what?
King
That was
Kong.
before it was cool. Barbie. That was before Barbie was cool again.
That's right.
That
That's
was
right.
cool. And on my Instagram, perhaps is even one of our Venus flytrap pictures. Did it make it?
Oh.
Oh, it sure did. Amazing.
Wow. Oh, I love it. The Venus
That's so
flytrap.
great.
Amazing.
So this is where the story is.
Venus flytrap, which brings it all back together, which is why I love your work so much and talk about it, is Venus flytraps.
That makes sense.
It all makes sense, right?
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. He's like, I made those costumes long before I'd ever seen the plant in person.
Yeah.
And when we think Venus flytrap, we think Little Shop of Horrors, and it's gonna like come and devour us in the night, and it's bloodthirsty, and there are great musical numbers, and watch out if you're a dentist, and
Right,
like
right,
all
right.
the things.
All that stuff.
And so everybody has this like, whoa, they're so scary thing. And like I made these costumes and my kids were like running around school trying to eat their friends and may or may not have gotten in trouble for that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And then not long ago, we were in the market and Sean runs over to me. He's, Mom, look, a Venus flytrap. And I was like, wait a second. This is an actual real live Venus flytrap. It is not bloodthirsty. It is not trying to eat me.
Yes.
When you see the real thing and get real information, stuff isn't so scary.
Yeah.
It's still carnivorous. Epilepsy still can be
It's true.
very dramatic and traumatic and all the things.
Well, especially if you sit at the computer and you look up all the stuff.
Yes.
The bad stuff rises to
Yes.
the top. It's always
Yes.
scary. That's what got the most hits and the most attention.
Yes.
But when you actually investigate it yourself
Yes.
and you're actually holding the Venus flytrap, you're like,
Yes.
this is pretty cute. And if I put my finger in here, it's not going to eat me. And
Exactly.
it's
I
like-
can care for this and not perish a horrible and musical theater death.
Right. Now,
Like-
I wouldn't want to be a fly,
I wouldn't want to be a fly.
but that's it. We don't love flies. It's fine. Flies can die.
And you know what? There's actually the bonus that they eat your flies.
That's exactly right. So you put this in the house. The flies are attracted to
The
this.
flies are attracted to it, and we actually saw it close on one and digest it over the amount of time that it took. And it's just this lump that starts shrinking.
Nick.
Oh, I'm gonna start
Lindsay,
leaving.
Lindsay's gonna love this.
I'm gonna start leaving trash out just to make more
my God.
flies, so I can.
Or not. Or you don't have to do that. The
Well, I
flies
got baseball
come.
players, so pick up this incredible book, Everything No One Tells You About Parenting a Disabled Child, your guide to the essential systems, services, and supports. Kelley Coleman, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for
Hold
having
this
me.
book up. I'm going to take a picture of you. But I love you and your husband, and now we're connected.
We're like best friends.
That's it. I mean, I'm going to go on the website, by the way, and enter because I want to be part of the community.
Fantastic. I love it.
All right. That's another great episode. Especially this month, Epilepsy Awareness Month. We'll see you next time. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talk About It. Remember, we're all human. We're all dealing with something, and a little compassion every day can change so many lives. Thank you to our special guests. Special thanks to our sponsor, SeizuresAreSigns.com. Thank you to J.J. Abrams for our theme music. Thank you to Nick Marzak for producing, directing, editing, and incidental music. On behalf of my fellow producers, Phil Gattone, Ken Lohenberg, and Nick Marzak, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you're not watching, Go to talkaboutitonvideo.com to watch these episodes. They're now on video as well. I'm Greg Grunberg. Don't forget to talk about it, and I will see you next time. This podcast is a production of the Talk About It Company.